my friends were like, we want to stick it to this guy Bruen. Well, we want this anti-gun sheriff or chief or whatever. We want his name to be tied into this great decision.
He's actually a pro-gun guy. He was following orders.
Really? All right, this is coming up as well.
Mm-hmm.
Shotgun with Charlie.
Riding shotgun refers to the practice of sitting next to the driver in a moving vehicle. The term riding shotgun came around after the time of the stagecoach, when somebody used to sit next to the driver holding a shotgun, in case they ran into bandits. My name is Charlie Cook, and I drive a lot. I like to talk to people while I'm driving, so I interview people in my car while I'm driving. Welcome to Riding Shotgun with Charlie.
All right, before we start this episode of Riding Shotgun with Charlie, I thank you guys all for being here. If you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel, please do. I am checking out the YouTube analytics, and it looks like more people are watching the show that are not subscribers. So if you have not subscribed, please do. We'd greatly appreciate it. And while you're subscribing, hit the notification bell, because that's good for all things YouTube. I'm glad you guys are here. I hope you guys enjoy the show. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of Riding Shotgun with Charlie. Today we are in East Greenbush, New York, which is in the upstate region, the capital region, I think is what they call this?
Capital region, capital district.
The capital district, there we are. And I have with me Tom King from the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association. Tom, thank you so much for being on the show.
Great to be here, Charlie. Great to be here.
I'm honored to have you. I know I reached out to you before the Bruen decision.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh, I should have him on the show. And then the Bruen decision happened, and I don't want to say I completely forgot about it, but
things became more important than me.
Well, no, I don't want to say that, but things happen, you know.
Yeah.
Life happens. Yes. So we ran into each other at the NRA Annual Meetings. Anthony Colandro, who's a good friend of mine, said you need to talk to these people, and then he says you need to have Tom King on, and he says we need to get the story straight from the horse's mouth. So I was like, you know what's coming up soon? The Bruen decision anniversary. So we need to get Tom on the show, and he's only a couple hours away. So let's do this.
Well, here we are, you know, and it's a pleasure to be here. Anthony Colandro is a great guy, a fellow NRA board member, and one of the truly pro-Second Amendment Americans in the, you know.
Oh my God, in the fight, absolutely. Mm-hmm. He's great, man. I interviewed him in 2016 before I started putting shows out, and he's been great ever since. So,
yes, he's into everything, and he's learned how to do it within the establishment where. And by that I mean he's using the same tactics that the establishment uses against us, and it really appears to be working, you know, and kudos to Anthony.
Absolutely. All right, listen, so how did you become a gun? Before we get into all the NYSRPA stuff, how did you become a gun guy?
Boy Scouts.
Boy Scouts, really?
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. You know, believe it or not, I come from an anti-gun family. My parents, my father was a pilot during World War II, and he came back from the war, and he wanted nothing to do with guns or anything like that. And I never owned a gun until I was 18, but I learned how to shoot in the Boy Scouts. And
so you're a real disappointment to your father, huh?
Yeah. Well, fortunately, or I shouldn't say fortunately, he died a number of years ago before I really got involved in this. And
gotcha.
Okay, it probably would have pissed him off a little bit, but he would have been proud of me because of what we've done. I mean, right. That's the way he was.
I don't like what you're doing, but I'm proud of what you're you're at. That's cool. That's cool. So you've been shooting you've been involved in firearms for a long time. How did you get to, well, let me ask you this. Which came first, the becoming the president of NYSRPA or getting on the NRA board of directors?
Well, actually what came first was a friend who I'm not sure I should call a friend anymore, asked me if I wanted to be involved with the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association as their legislative director, okay? And he asked me that because my wife and I owned a business that was involved with the New York State Legislature. And it was a company called Zap Courier Service, and what it did was it delivered memos to the legislators, hand delivered them. And, the opposition memos, the support memos, and any kind of information that the lobbyists wanted to put out, including the NRA and the Rifle and Pistol Association. And because I had this kind of background, they asked me if I wanted to be legislative director. And I reluctantly said yes, okay?
Yeah.
And about a year later, maybe a year and a half later, the president of the association came up to me and said, "Hey, I'm stepping down, and I think that you should be president." And I said, "What? I've only been here a year and a half." And he said, "Well, no," he says, "because of your political knowledge and you should do it." Mm-hmm. So again, I reluctantly said, "Yes, I'll do it for 2 years." By the way, that was about 18 years ago. And and as you're doing it, you start to see that the system is continually, and by the system I mean the government, okay, particularly regarding the Second Amendment, is constantly working against you in these little subtle ways that most people don't get to see. And we didn't get where we are right now in one fell swoop, except for the S.A.F.E. Act. That was probably the most egregious act that ever came out, okay? But except for that, we lost our rights incrementally. Okay, they would take a little bit here, a little bit there.
I call it the salami method.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And pretty soon, and the members would say, "Well, I don't agree with that, but yeah, I can understand how they're doing that or why they're doing that," okay? Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, you look at it and you have no rights at all, or you're on the verge of having no rights. And I realized this was going on early on, and I started telling people that, that we have to do this, and then people came back and and they wanted to, with one fell swoop take, outlaw all of the anti-gun legislation that had been passed. They wanted to bring it back and have it looked at again and voted down. But that just doesn't happen in New York State because of the demographics and the politics. Okay, I mean, right now in the House, there's 150 members, and 42 of them are Republicans, and the other 108 are Democrats. And in the Senate, there's 22 Republicans and 41 Democrats. So we can't bring anything back and overturn it. We can't stop any legislation. Okay, so I'm watching this going on, and I said, well, only rats leave sinking ships. Okay, and besides, it became a point of where I wanted to do this now because they were taking my rights that I believed in, that I raised my kids, unlike the way I was raised. I raised both my son and my daughter shooting from very early ages, and they have children now, and we've done the same thing with them. And I wanted to protect those rights that we had, that I grew up with, for my son and my daughter and their kids. Okay,
yeah,
so
absolutely.
So that's why I'm here. Okay, and how did I get involved with the NRA? Funny, it's really a funny story. I was down at a Friends of the NRA meeting down in Poughkeepsie, I think it was, and I'm talking to this fellow who was I never met him before I became involved, and he became a real big supporter of mine. And I'm standing there talking to him, and this other guy walks up, and the guy's name was John Sigler, and this fellow introduces me to John, and it's says Tom King, this is John Sigler. John, this is Tom King. Okay, and says this is a guy that you should be looking. You should have him on some committees. I had no idea who John Sigler was.
John Sigler rings a bell.
Yeah,
he was the president, wasn't he?
Well, at the time he was the first vice president. Okay, and he looked at me and he says, "Well," he says, and I don't want to mention this guy's name because he's heavily involved, but he's in a position where, it might be detrimental if his name is out. Okay,
sure.
And so he says, if so and so recommends you, he says, I at least have to talk to you. And I said, fine. I said, I stuck my hand out again. I said, well, officially I'm Tom King. He said, I'm John Sigler. And I said, who are you and what do you do? Yeah, I had no clue.
Yeah, that's always an uncomfortable situation.
Yeah, and he says, well, I'm the first vice president in the NRA, about to become president in like 6 months or so. And I said, oh, congratulations. I said, I'm a big fan of the NRA, life member, and all of that.
Yeah. And
I said, you guys do good work. And he said, so are you interested in the committee? And I said, yeah, I think so. So, but 2 months later, 3 months later, I get a message that I've been nominated to be on the Clubs and Associations Committee because I was president of the Rifle and Pistol Association.
Yeah.
So I get down to the first meeting, and at that time, the Rifle and Pistol Association was not on very good terms with the NRA. There had been a few, battles between siblings, okay, and the people who were running the Rifle and Pistol Association at the time thought that they should have more say in what's going on at the NRA, because most people don't understand this or don't know this, is that the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association started the NRA back in 1871.
Wow.
Okay, we were formed in the winter of 1781 by two generals and a colonel from the Civil War who started an organization because of the dismal marksmanship of the people that came from New York State during the Civil War. Okay, and it was just a shooting organization, right. And it went so well. And 9 months later, they formed the NRA, the same three people and all of that. So we are actually the parent organization of the NRA.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. Wayne LaPierre came to one of our annual meetings to speak, and I introduced him as the executive vice president of the second oldest Second Amendment group in the United States. and he got a kick out of it. And he looked at the people that were there, and he said, "That's the truth." He said, "That's where we came from," And but anyway, I got on the committee, and I saw what the NRA was doing, and the NRA was doing a lot of good work. And the opportunity came. I was asked if I was interested in running for a board position, and I said, yeah, I think so. I said, I'm very busy. I hope that it doesn't. It's not going to take too much time and take all my time. And no, don't worry about that.
Right. It's like with Cub Scout, right? My son was in Cub Scouts, and I was a Cub Scout leader. I'm like, yeah, just for like an hour a week.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, that's exactly the same thing, And finally, what happens is it gets in your blood. Okay, it becomes a part of you. It becomes an integral part of what you are. Okay, and so then I became more involved with the NRA, and we started doing more things with the Rifle and Pistol Association, and that led me to, I guess, where I am now. A lot of people may not know, but I'm president of the National NRA Foundation, the people that do the Friends of the NRA and give all of the local grants and the national grants and all of that. And it's a $1 billion foundation, and we give out somewhere around 200. We've given out over $500 million in grants, and every year we give out a couple, $2 million, $3 million a year in grants. sometimes more, depending on how the money is coming in from the events and donations and everything. But it's yeah, it is. It's and it's all money that goes to 501c3 organizations, either for training or education, or safety, or that. It's not any money that's used for any political purposes, and it's a another one of those things that said, no, don't worry, you're going to have a couple meetings a year. Don't worry about that. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, anyway, so here we are, and here I am, and it's been a great ride. I've enjoyed it. I'm still enjoying it, and I guess when I stop enjoying it is when I'm going to retire. That's
when it's time to quit.
Yep.
Definitely when it becomes a job. So how does all of this? Since we just passed the 1-year anniversary of the Bruen decision, when did the Bruen decision start? When did this fight begin? How did it begin? Let's talk about that.
Okay, well, the Bruen decision, God, I don't remember the exact year, but it was held up in the Second Circuit Court of Appeals for about 3.5 years. And fortunately for us and unfortunately for them, that was the case, because by the time they decided that they were going to handle it, they handled our petition to release the case. We had a friendly Supreme Court, okay,
right.
Which we didn't before then.
Right.
But it started in a way that all good cases should start. I had 2 members come to me who had perfectly clean records, had nothing that could ever stop them from having a concealed carry permit.
Right.
Get turned down, okay, by Judge McNally, okay, and McNally was one of the defendants in our Bruen lawsuit, okay.
Real quick, what's the process? What's the process to get a permit in New York? Because I've heard that you have to, if you have a carry permit, it's got to have the make and model and serial number and all that sort of information.
Oh yeah, well you have to. Every pistol that you own is listed on your permit. And they're little cards that are about this big, credit card size, and they have all the guns listed on them.
Do you have to have a permit to purchase?
Yes, you have to have that to purchase. You have to. They give you a certificate, and you have to give it to the gun shop when you get the pistol when you pick it up.
Gotcha. Do they have to have the same thing for long guns?
No, there's no. In New York City, yes, okay, but
of course.
Upstate, no. There's no there's no licensing or anything for long guns. You just have to pass the next check,
Okay, gotcha. So to get a carry permit, what's the process for a carry permit? Do you have to take a class, a certain length of time, a qualification on a score, on a certain target, a certain score?
Well, there. Up until the Bruen decision came down, there was you had to have proper cause, okay, and proper cause was a this idea that the liberals had that was sitting out there, and proper cause could be anything they want it to be, and anything that could keep you from getting a concealed carry permit, okay?
Right.
And it varied from county to county. Like Rensselaer County that I live in, that East Greenbush is in, was always a fairly gun-friendly county, all except for one judge, this McNally that we discussed, and you could get a concealed carry permit fairly easily.
Yeah.
Okay. But you still had to get fingerprinted. You have to get 4 personal references that they have to swear under oath that they've been known you for so many years, and that what they're telling you is that what they're telling the state is the truth, and it just made it really difficult. Okay, then the Bruen decision came down, and it did away with all of those requirements, okay, until Kathy Hochul pushed through the Concealed Carry Improvement Act that has become even more stringent, okay? But
I called her at the time. I called her the unelected Kathy Hochul.
yes, well, that's exactly right, and God knows Lee Zeldin, who ran against her for governor, it was a great congressman and a great guy, and how he lost the election I'll never know. Okay, because she was so unpopular at the time. And so there we are, and we're coming back now that the we have Bruen NYSRPA 2 or Bruen 2, but it actually shouldn't be Bruen 2 because the superintendent of the state police has been changed. It should be NYSRPA versus Negrilli, who is, and it has been modified that, but everybody still calls it Bruen 2 or NYSRPA 2. Okay, and
Right.
that will never change, and we're contesting the rules that were put into place under the CCIA, and again. Because another suit was filed prior to ours that, frankly, it's a good suit, but it doesn't go into the depth that ours goes into. The Second Circuit has held it in abeyance until they decide the other case. It's just a stalling tactic because they know that we have a really good case, and that the Supreme Court would like it because it's the same plaintiffs plus a few others, okay, that we had for the first suit, whose Second Amendment rights were still abridged. Okay, so they know that will be a successful case, so they're trying to hold it up as long as possible.
Jeez, unbelievable.
Yeah,
unbelievable. So the process that it took was, you said, 3.5 years.
3.5 years, maybe 4 years. I don't recall exactly how much time it was, but the arguments were held, and frankly, I thought the arguments were for our side were really, really very good, and and I walked out of the Second Circuit Court in New York City thinking, well, this is a slam dunk, okay, and 3.5 years later. They totally ruled against us with everything that the questions were asked, the questions that they asked, and the judges on a couple of occasions even mocked the attorney generals, people who were arguing the case because of some of the stupid remarks that they made. So
Really?
I thought, wow, this is good. This is going to go very easy.
Should be a breeze.
Yeah, wrong.
Oh, man.
And then, fortunately, on the first writ of certiorari to get the Supreme Court to take it, they accepted it, and then it was just a matter of time, and the Supreme Court, looked at it the way the founding fathers looked at it, and set up the same principles that they were ruling, and they were making their decisions on, and it comes down to history and what the Second Amendment says.
Yeah, history, text, and tradition.
Yep.
That's pretty wild.
Yep.
How does the state organization fund all of this? Like, I know, obviously the NRA is going to be involved in helping, and there's going to be some other groups. This is expensive.
There were no other groups.
There were no other groups
other than the NRA.
Wow.
Okay. That there was, none of the other big groups funded anything or even attempted to fund it. None of the groups in New York State did. If it wasn't for the NRA, and we have to fund it through our the Rifle and Pistol has to fund it through our fundraising and our membership dues. Okay, and $30 for a member. Plus we have a lot of life members, so we don't get a full $30 per member per year.
Yeah.
Doesn't go very far when you're in the Supreme Court suit.
Right, when you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars.
No, when you're talking millions.
Millions.
Yeah.
Wow.
If it wasn't for the NRA, the Bruen decision or the Rifle and Pistol decision would never come about. They were responsible for funding 75% of the decision.
How many members are there of New York State Rifle and Pistol?
About 26,000.
about 26,000. That's a decent amount. I mean, New York's a big state.
Yeah.
There's got to be more. There's got to be more gun owners than people that have licenses, and certainly people that have memberships.
No, well, we figure that there are somewhere between 4 and 5 million gun owners in New York State. Okay, I mean, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when you could still get the information, there was a FOIL done on the pistol permit holders in New York State, and it was somewhere around 1.25 million pistol permit holders. Okay, of which there's many, many more than that now. But for some reason, New Yorkers just don't join organizations. You know, we had the same percentage of New Yorkers, that New York gun owners that belong to the Rifle and Pistol Association, as the NRA has nationally. You know, and it's not just us; it's other organizations as well. Okay, you know, and so I don't know what the answer is to that. I mean, we've been trying for years, and our membership steadily grows, but it's not like it should be. If we had 1 million of the gun owners in New York State that were members of the Rifle and Pistol Association, and we're also members of the NRA, you know, the problems with gun ownership and the Second Amendment in New York State would practically go away.
It really would, and I really think that gun owners need to realize this, that we do need to join together. We do need to join these groups and help.
Yep.
I mean, even if it's, you know, at the minimum, people should join the groups.
Absolutely. Because
that's where these are the people that are, you know, the groups that are out there doing things and fighting at the state level. But when an election comes up, when some nonsense bill comes up, if we don't have enough people to go out there and support it and let the politicians know that, hey, this is a bunch of baloney, we don't want you to vote for this, then we're just going to get plowed over.
Oh, that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happens, you know. Plus the fact in New York State, there's really no provision for having public hearings on laws. Okay,
really?
Yeah. The only way you can have a public hearing is if someone in the legislature decides to have one.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you know, like none of the anti-Second Amendment bills that go through every year have any kind of public hearing. Nobody sees them, and it's not like they're announced or anything. You got to search it out, and it's very difficult. It took me even unless the media picks up on a bill that's passed. Okay, there is no announcement or anything, and I signed up for the Rifle and Pistol has signed up for an association called LRS, Legislative Retrieval Service, and what they'll do is they research all of these laws, and you can go to them and find out. And even with that, in the last few days of the legislature, nobody reports anything, and that's when they usually do all of the anti-gun legislation, you know, because they're going home and everybody's going to forget about it by the time the election comes up in November, if there is one, or they come back the following year. And so, you know, it will not be posted what the votes were on these probably until September. And fortunately, we have friends in the Senate, but it took me 2 weeks to find out what the bills were that passed the Senate, and were also signed into law by the governor. And I still haven't found out what bills passed the Assembly.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, and it takes time. I mean, I can go and repeat what they say in the newspapers and send out a big post on that. Okay, but that's grandstanding. Okay, that's you know, that's, you don't know if the people don't read that. Okay, if they don't see that in the papers, they don't see that on the news, then you know, they really need to be slapped in the face, okay, and say, wake up, you know, pay attention to what's going on.
Absolutely.
And I'm more important with how I'm more interested in how the bills passed, who voted for them.
Mhm.
Okay, to see if any of the Republicans or any of the people that we supported voted for them. Okay, and that's becoming more difficult to find. Particularly in a timely manner. You know?
Oh, of course, yeah. Yeah, it's nuts that people don't want to get involved. I mean, I know in Massachusetts we've got a lot of closet gun owners. I don't know if you have them here.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, I kind of figured. And they don't want to let their neighbors know that they're gun owners, and that they believe in you ought to be able to have the right to protect yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and what I find that's really amazing is that you have these people, you know, all own guns, you know, and I think that probably 40 or 50% of the calls that we field that people are calling asking us for updates or how does this affect me, you know, this law affect me, aren't members of the association. And when you ask them to join, they say, well, yeah, I'll go online and do it. You know, they're not going to do it.
They're not.
Yeah,
absolutely not.
You know, and it's really a shame, because if we had more members and more money to fight this, it would be a whole lot easier, and we'd be probably a lot more successful. And also, when I first started doing this, I walked into the first legislator's office, who I had known, okay, prior to taking the job, and I told him what I was doing. And the first question he asked me was, how much money do you have, and how many votes do you have? Wow. And that wasn't two questions. That was one question. Okay.
That was one question.
Yeah, and that's what's important. You know, you look at these guys, and many of them are well-meaning. Okay, but you have to be really careful. You have to look at what they're doing and look at what they're saying, but more importantly, look at how they vote. And that's what a lot of people don't do. You know, I can name a number of occasions when I've been walking out of a legislator's office and clap me on the shoulder and say, "Don't worry, Tom, I got your back. We're friends, okay?" And I'm looking at an anti-gunner walking in.
I've been involved in this thing over the last few months that's been going on in Massachusetts. It's called the Gun Law Listening Tour.
Yeah.
And it is a sham. I've gone to 8 of the 11 of these that they've had. At 2 of the ones that I went to, I felt good because we had pro-gun people that were on the panel. The rest of the times, it was people who were counselors who knew nothing about guns that said, hey, we need to get rid of ghost guns. It was people whose family members or their sons were killed by gun violence or violence with human violence with a gun. And they want something done, and I get it, and that's a horrible thing that happened to them, but they're going after the people that are jumping through the hoops, the people that are paying licensing fees, the people that are going through background checks, the people that are following the assault weapon ban, the people that are following the magazine restrictions. It really is an unbelievable sham, and the man that was running this, his name was Representative Michael Day. He put a picture of him out on his Facebook and social media that said he was taking a meeting with the red shirts. And then in the middle of this, I think it was in early May, he put up a post that he was proud and excited to meet with Gabby Giffords. Mm-hmm. And you're like, wait a second, just like you said, you're on your way out. They're like, yeah, nothing to worry about. We're good to go. We're with you. And then the anti-gun folks come walking in, and you're like, ugh.
Yep. You know, the interesting thing, right along with what you're just saying, is that when these anti-gunners are proposing these bills, they bring all of these experts in to talk about what's needed to be done and what happens when things aren't done. Okay, but In the almost 20 years I've been doing this, I have never been asked to sit in on one of these pre-bill meetings. Never once.
Unbelievable. I mean, if that doesn't show you, it's a sham.
Nope. It's totally out of control. And the one thing I would say to our members and gun owners, stop listening to your unions. Stop listening to the party that your parents signed you up to be part of when you were a kid. Vote for your rights. Vote for what's important to you. That's what we have to do. We have to get past that. Well, my mom, and I hate to say, my mom and dad were Democrats, so I'm a Democrat. And unfortunately, in New York State, Democrat is synonymous with anti-gun.
Right.
Okay, and you know, the people have to understand that if they're voting for a Democrat, they're voting for an anti-gun.
Yeah.
You know,
I've gotten to the point where I call people that vote against our freedoms the self-hating Americans.
That's right.
You know, I mean, it really is. It's aggravating. My when I was a teenager, I didn't know what a Democrat or Republican was. I asked my mother. I said, "Mom, are we Democrats or Republicans?" And she said, "Well, I was born in Wisconsin, and your father was born in Tennessee." And I'm like, that doesn't help me at all.
No.
I have no idea what that means. So I left, and I'm like, I don't really know.
Mm-hmm.
But then I realized I was a little more conservative about things, and then the more I get into gun stuff, the more I become a libertarian. Like, let people be and let them go.
Yep.
One thing I wanted to ask you, when all of this went down last year, there were people that were calling it the NYSRPA case. There were people that were calling it the Bruen case. I was like, hey, we need to give credit to New York State Rifle and Pistol Association. We don't need to bring up Bruen's name. And
particularly since he's been fired.
right.
Yeah.
So I had some friends that are like, we need to make sure that this guy's tied to this, this police officer, sheriff, whatever his title was.
He was the superintendent of the state police.
The superintendent of the state police. But he needs to be tied to this case for forever. He needs to be tied to one of the biggest pro-gun rulings from the Supreme Court.
Yes.
Now, you were telling me that he was actually a pro-gun guy.
Yeah, he was. And, he unfortunately was also, came through the ranks. And when you get to be a certain rank up in the state police, but particularly the superintendent, it's a political job.
Right.
So you do what you're told, what the politicians tell you, particularly what the governor tells you. And you have to remember that the person who appointed him was Andrew Cuomo.
Andrew Cuomo?
Yeah.
The same Andrew Cuomo that...
Yes, that same Andrew Cuomo.
Right, the same one who, he stepped down because he was groping women in an elevator?
Yeah, well, among other places. Yeah.
Not in her elevator.
Oh, you meant a location. Yeah. Yes, that's the same Andrew Cuomo. So he so he had to do what he was told. Now I have a lot of higher placed friends in the state police. Okay, that I've known for years. That I've known gone in and come up through the ranks. Okay,
yeah. And
they all said that Bruen was a nice guy. He believed in the Second Amendment, and the reason that a lot of the laws weren't enforced the way they were intended to be was because he didn't push it. Okay, and one of the reasons that he's gone. Okay, the guy that's in there now is he will do everything possible to make it unbearable for gun owners.
He'll do everything possible to make it impossible.
Yes, that's exactly right.
That's exhausting. So what is Superintendent Bruen?
Yes.
What is he doing now?
I don't know. I was thinking about that earlier this morning. Knowing the way things normally work in New York State, if you get fired or asked to resign and all that, even though after you resign 6 months later you wind up with a job that's paying you $30,000 more a year than you were making from the job that you get fired from. So I'm sure that he landed on his feet and he's working somewhere, but I don't know.
Gotcha. Okay. That's got to be a big embarrassment for him to drag around.
Oh, it has to be. Okay,
Yeah.
has to be.
I was listening to one of my good friends, Amanda S.A.F.E, and she talks all the time on her radio show, I Am the Target Radio, that Bruen's been cited over 200 times.
6 months ago, it was 236 times.
200, and that was 6 months ago.
Yep.
And we've had 6 months since then.
Yes.
Unbelievable. And what's really aggravating as an average gun owner is some people that I teach classes to have never heard about it, and they don't know anything about it. And then you say, oh, well, this is what the Bruen decision was, and this is what it means, and it's got the proper cause, which is nonsense. When I was going to the listening tours, they would mention every time that the Supreme Court had made them change the laws in Massachusetts. And I'm like, no, they just acknowledged the right that was taken away from us to be able to have a license to carry without having a specific reason, but we still have to get government permission.
Yes.
Oh, it's so ridiculous.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the same all over. But, what really bothers me the most is that you look at states like New York, Massachusetts, New Jersey, California, that are ignoring the decision.
This is what I find really aggravating. There are, 8 states that have Bruen really affected, and these 8 states are still crapping on the decision.
Yes, they are. But this is not new. Okay, there's a number of decisions over the years that New York State and some other states have refused to acknowledge and have passed or have not passed, but they passed legislation, but also the lower courts have written decisions regarding them, and contrary to what Bruen or the decision that they were challenging was, and unfortunately, the people who brought the cases didn't have the wherewithal to go further. So you had these Circuit Court of Appeal rulings that the lawyers cite when they're arguing a decision that goes contrary to the Supreme Court, but they use these lower court decisions, and the lower liberal courts accept it. Okay, and then that becomes kind of standard operating procedure.
Right.
And it goes on time after time.
It's all false pretenses.
Sure it is.
It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. So, all right, you were talking about Bruen 2, which isn't really Bruen 2 because there's a new...
Negrilli. Yes. Negrilli, has kind of fallen into this, and not to say that he doesn't deserve it, but there he is, and the case is going on. It has not been argued. It's being held. It's being stayed or held in abeyance until another case is decided, and we don't know how long that will be. But we're about to. We're about to file a piece to get it released from the stay so that it can be argued now. Okay, and they don't really want they don't want that to happen, because if it's released now and it's in the queue to move up once this case is decided, it's going to be too quick. They want to hold it up until this case is decided, then schedule a date to hear our case, 4 months down the line, okay, and then take 6 months, 8 months to hear it, and in the meantime, all of these other atrocities to the Second Amendment are going on in this state and other states, and the Supreme Court is only. They're going to take a case that settles this. We're pretty sure about that. But they want the right case. Okay. Right. And that's why it took 10 years for the Supreme Court to come up with another Second Amendment case. And they were waiting for our case because of the way it was written and the way it was argued. It gave them the ability to expand or narrow the case how they wanted to at points, okay, and at certain points. And the court likes that when they're looking at a case, because if they see that we're going after something that is way too wide of a look at something, particularly since if there are other court decisions on it, Supreme Court decisions on it, they can narrow it down to those. But if we're looking at something that's narrow and they feel that it should be much wider than this, they can do it. And that's what happened with the Bruen decision. We had some of the best lawyers in the United States that were writing that, okay?
Yeah.
And it was an ideal case. The Supreme Court loved it, and it's obvious from the way they decided it, and they opened it up to exactly what they wanted to say at the time, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And as much as Kathy Hochul and the New York State Legislature and the legislators of the other 8 states are looking at the laws that they're passing, this whole problem has already been decided by the Supreme Court, because what they're doing is still a infringement on the rights that they set forth in the NYSRPA decision, okay? And see, I'm learning, okay? And so they're we know how they're gonna react. We know what the decision is going to be, because they've already made the decision,
Right.
And so and because of the way these states acted, the next decision that comes down, instead of reaffirming the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association decision, could possibly go further. Now, that's a speculation on my part, okay?
Sure.
But it's the possibility that could happen.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I think that's the reason that the suit is getting held up, and it's gonna take time. I mean, hey, we waited a total of about 6 years on the original NYSRPA case. I don't think we're going to have to wait that long. I think it's going to probably be a year and a half. Okay, but we're going to be successful. I mean, that's all there is, because the decision has already been made.
It really has. And I was just thinking what do they call it here? The CCIA, the Concealed Carry Improvement Act.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, it's not an improvement.
No.
And like you said, it is all more infringement, because these weren't sensitive places before. So how can they be sensitive places after the decision?
Yep.
It's so. Anyone that doesn't have cranial rectal insertion, anyone that doesn't have that,
yes,
can see that this is the games that these people are playing.
Oh yeah, and particularly since that the Supreme Court said that when they were arguing the case, that there was no way that you could possibly make the island of New York a sensitive place.
Right.
And that's essentially what they've done. They've made, Kathy Hochul made the pronouncement. Someone asked her, well, because of this CCIA and the sensitive places areas, where can a concealed carry holder carry his firearm? And she said, well, maybe in the middle of a couple of streets.
Maybe in the middle of a couple of streets. Unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable.
Yep. But that's New York politics, okay? And and it has to change. It just really has to change. If we want the Second Amendment to survive, and I'm not just saying in New York State, if we want it to survive nationally, we have to change it in places like New York, okay, Massachusetts, New Jersey, okay.
I call them the Bruen states.
Yes.
because I mean, if you live in free America, as I call it, rather than occupied territory,
Yes.
where we are, if you live in free America, the Bruen decision goes down. You're like, yeah, okay, so what's the big deal?
That's right.
Right? But here for us, it is a big deal. And then of course our states say, oh, we're gonna, I call her our AG, our anti-gun attorney general, who's now our AGG, our anti-gun governor. She came out. We have the two phrases that we use in Massachusetts are prohibited people, and oh my gosh, it begins with an S. I'm going to come up with it in a second. Prohibited people and I can't come up.
Don't you hate it when that happens?
I do.
Oh, yeah. If
suitable people. That's
okay.
it. So we have prohibited people and suitable people. Prohibited people are people that can't legally own a firearm for various reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Prohibited people are people who, I don't want to say they're questionable, but maybe some of their actions aren't great. And I always tell people, a suitable person is someone that plays, hard rock at 3 a.m. when their friends are over drinking.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't prohibit you, but it might not be suitable because you might be inviting your neighbors. And I always tell people, you know what you do? Invite your neighbors.
That's right.
Bring them over. Have them come over to the party. But Maura Healey came out and said that we already have prohibited people, and the chiefs are already making discretions and determining who's suitable and who's not suitable. And a prohibited person is. It's not objective. It's objective. Suitable is subjective. Like,
that's right.
What makes someone unsuitable?
That's right. And the thing that we have to worry about, and I mean the entire United States, if you look at what's going on in the Department of Justice right now, if you look at what's going on in many of the anti-gun states, there's the weaponizing of government against the individual, okay? And that is a huge threat to our freedom, and it's a huge threat to free speech, because people are worried that if they speak up, they're going to be prosecuted for something.
Right, which goes right back to the CCIA.
That's exactly right.
If you say something on your social media, they want, 3 years of your social media history?
Oh, but they haven't figured out how to check that yet, so they've stopped giving out pistol permits because they can't check social media.
Was it New York where the guy, where the licensing officer was looking through the VA for people's military records, and if they couldn't find one, he wouldn't issue them because they didn't have a military record to look for, so he couldn't find anything on them?
I'm not aware of that. It might be. That sounds like something that New York would do. Okay,
right.
But I'm not aware of that.
Okay, yeah, because I remember hearing this. I forget where it was.
And one of the things that I think that we have to get across to our people is that social media is probably the best thing that ever happened to the gun movement, and the worst thing that ever happened to the gun movement.
Right, it is the double-edged sword.
Absolutely. And everything that's on social media is not the truth, and what you have to be worried about are the anti-gun trolls that are professing to be pro-gun people, that are on all of our Facebook pages, that participate in all of our blogs, that are there for the main reason of turning us against each other. Okay? And it happens all the time. I guarantee you that I can go on my Facebook page and say that it's going to be, the weather service said it's going to be warm and sunny tomorrow, and there's going to be 12 people that show up saying that that's not true, just to start an argument. And they do that and everything, and it's all AI initiated trolls that just automatically answer.
I like to tell people artificial intelligence is still artificial.
That's exactly right.
It's completely nuts.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we are almost back to where we need to be.
Yes.
Where do you see where do you see the new case going?
Well,
with McGrelly,
I think that the case is going to wind up in the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of when. I think there will be a favorable decision on it. People should read the case, rather than just believe what they're seeing on social media, on Facebook or whatever. Okay, read the case, see what the arguments are, and see what you think about the arguments. I mean, that's the only way to know for sure what you're getting and what's being said. I just think that it's the only way. You have to be informed. If you're not informed, you don't know what you're voting for. You don't know who to support, and you have to join an association. I want you to join my association. I want you to join the NRA and the Rifle and Pistol Association. But if you don't want to join them, join somebody, okay? And please, if your membership is a fine thing, and the money you pay for the membership, covers the newsletter and stuff like that. But please donate a little bit, just a little bit. I mean, even if it's $5, it all helps.
Right. It really does. And it's not, I know it seems like a lot. And when you look at, if you look at joining a number of different groups, it's a few $100.
Yeah,
it is. But, it's $20 here and $30 there, which is certainly not going to kill us.
No, the Bruen, the Rifle and Pistol versus Bruen decision cost $2.2 million.
$2.2 million. Holy moly. That's a lot of bread. That's a lot of money. Well, I'm glad that you stuck it out and you fought it and you made it to the Supreme Court and you guys won. Yeah,
so am I. It's good to see the good guys come out ahead for a change,
Right. I know it's not always the case, but it really is. And it's really, the Bruen decision, the NYSRPA decision has been, it's the gift that keeps on giving. And sometimes I don't even know if we know how much it's going to keep giving us.
No, I don't think we do. I think that the NYSRPA decision is truly a landmark decision. And I think that it's going, as long as we keep our followers behind us and they keep on supporting us, it will be the decision that changes the outlook for guns in the United States. Okay. But we also have to push for truth. The truth is that, what's causing all of these, these shootings, and all of that. I don't know if you, and I'm not a Robert Kennedy fan, but he made a statement that we're going after the wrong things. He says what we should be looking at is the psychotropic drugs that we're giving our kids and all of that. Okay.
Right.
And he's the first politician that I've ever heard say that. And I've been saying it for a number of years because I've done a lot of research on it. And almost all of the young kids that were involved in the shootings have all been on psychotropic drugs.
Sure. Yeah. That's not a ringing endorsement.
No.
Definitely not. All right, listen, how can people find, you were telling me that the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association is not on the Facebook?
Oh, we're on Facebook.
You're on Facebook.
But we may not be for much longer just because of all of the trolls. We're going to be doing something different. We're redoing our website right now, and we're going to have an interactive website coming up. Okay?
All right. So what's the website? How can people find that?
NYSRPA.org, www.nysrpa.org. You can see the copies of our newsletters are up there. You can read what we've been doing over the years and see it. And all of the information about us is there, particularly the founding in 1871 and being the parent company of the NRA.
The NRA. That is too cool. That is too cool. Listen, Tom, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate this.
Oh, I appreciate this too. I think you're doing a great job here.
Well, thank you. I'm honored.
Yeah.
So if you've made it this far, certainly please share the show with your friends.
I will.
Again, thank you, Tom, for being on. If you are not a member of the Second Amendment Foundation, which is one of the other big pro-gun groups, you can join them at SAF.org. The lifetime membership's only $150, and there's a special link below that you can use to do that. You can also find all of your favorite pro-freedom podcasts at sdrn.us. That's the Self-Defense Radio Network. And congratulations, 1 year of the Bruen decision. This is awesome. We will see you guys next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.